Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we'll be reading from the 10th canto, the first chapter. The verse number is 20. The name of the chapter is The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction. Tatra gatva jagannatham devadevam vrishakapim purusham purushashuktena upataste samahita. The translation, sorry, the word for word. Tatra, there on the shore of the ocean of milk, gatva, after going, Jagannatham, unto the master of the entire universe, the supreme being, Deva Devam, the supreme god of all gods, Vrishakapim, the Supreme Person, Vishnu, who provides for everyone and diminishes everyone's suffering. Purusham, the Supreme Person, Purusha Shuktena, with the Vedic mantra known as Purusha Shukta. Upataste, worshipped. Samahita, with full attention. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. After reaching the shore of the ocean of milk, the demigods worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, the Master of the whole universe, the Supreme God of all gods, who provides for everyone and diminishes everyone's suffering. With great attention, they worship Lord Vishnu, who lies on the ocean of milk, by reciting the Vedic mantras known as the Purusha Shukta. Purport. The demigods, such as Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, King Indra, Chandra, and Surya, are all subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aside from the demigods, even in human society, there are many influential personalities supervising various businesses or establishments. Lord Vishnu, however, is the God of gods, Parameshwar. He is Param Purusha, the Supreme Being, Paramatma. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.1, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. Krishna, known as Govinda, is the Supreme Controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. No one is equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he is described by many words: Jagannatha, Devadeva, Vrishakapi, and Purusha. The supremacy of Lord Vishnu is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.12 in this statement by Arjuna. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. You are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the Supreme Abode and Purifier, the Absolute Truth and the Eternal Divine Person. You are the Primal God, Transcendental and Original, and you are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. Krishna is Adi Purusha, the original personality of Godhead. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna, and all the Vishnu Tattvas are Parameshwara, Devadeva. Omakyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Parijana Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamtamscha Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamtamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Shri Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Veja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavranda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll read the translation once more. After reaching the shore of the ocean of milk, the demigods worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. the master of the whole universe, the supreme God of all gods, who provides for everyone and diminishes everyone's suffering. With great attention, they worship Lord Vishnu, who lies on the ocean of milk, by reciting the Vedic mantra known as the Purusha Shukta. Krishna, so seek the blessings of the devotees online and the devotees here in person. Please offer a prayer that I can try and represent Srila Prabhupada and our Parampara. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So in this verse, what we see is the demigods, and including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they are all approaching Vishnu in the ocean of milk, and they are in distress. And then they sing the Purusha Shukta prayers. So first off, what we see is that the demigods are in distress. Like even we as people, we can see that we are constantly in the three kinds of miseries. Either one of them, or all of them, or some of them, Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, and the Adhyatmic distresses that we are constantly encountering in our lives. And like around the world also, we see so many problems, like there's a refugee crisis, the pandemic that we are all living through, the economic disparities, the racial issues, ecological issues, and then there's a war that's brewing between the US and America or Ukraine. So there are so many issues going on around the world. Krishna describes in the Gita that this place is Dukhalyam Ashashvatam. It's a place full of miseries, and at the same time, it is also temporary. So in another verse, like Krishna, in the next verse, Krishna says like, Ha Brahma Abhuna Loka. Basically, what Krishna is saying is like, from the highest planet in the material world to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death takes place. And one who attains to my abode, to Krishna's abode, never takes his birth again. So basically what we see is like, even on the planets of the demigods, there is some sort of misery going on. And for us on this material planet, on this material plane, we experience, like Krishna says, like that basically these three modes of material nature, it's very difficult to overcome. But only those who have surrendered unto Krishna can easily cross beyond it. What in the Mahabharata, like Yudhishthira Maharaj asks this question to Krishna, like, why do his devotees undergo suffering? Because the Pandavas have gone through a lot of suffering. It's quite incomprehensible that someone who is so close to the Lord, who is personally with the Lord, still have to endure so much. And Krishna, in response, he says that when I want to show kindness, I fulfill the desires of my devotees. But if I want to show the supreme compassion to my devotees, then he says like he takes everything away. So they don't have anywhere else to turn to, basically. So when on this topic of distress, like especially when we are in distress, like the first thing is naturally that we try to solve it ourselves. We try to adjust our material situation, our emotional situation, which is quite natural. And otherwise, like if we go to people that we trust, either to our families or friends, but ultimately the service, the real relief can only be provided by either Krishna or someone who's representing him, his devotees. So when we look at our entire philosophy, it is basically Prabhupada is repeating on so many occasions that we are not this body, we are a spirit soul, and that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. But because we are under illusion, we don't easily realize this fact. It takes a long time, less for some, lot for most of us. And what we see is like our by our own limited experience, we cannot seem to solve these problems. So that sort of brings us to the topic of like faith, that there is something or someone who is beyond our limited experiences. And as aspiring devotees, we we have some preliminary faith in Krishna, like that's either through our experiences or through some faith in our spiritual master or the other devotees, or from what we've heard about Krishna. And when we compare that to what is happening outside, we see like, okay, this is making more and more sense, even though I'm not fully convinced. But this, the philosophy, the Vedic scriptures, it is always true under all different circumstances. So, excuse me, our experience of Krishna is quite limited. Like in the Vishnu Purana, it's described like Aishwarasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Shriyam. So basically, it's describing like the 6 opulences that Krishna has, and he has these opulences in unlimited quantity. Basically, it's like riches, wealth, strength, influence, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. And in our present consciousness, like I said, like we can't fully grasp all of these things because we are covered by the modes of ignorance and passion, and we are attracted to the mundane activities of the world. So basically, what is required of us is to reconfirm our faith every day, like just reaffirm it by either hearing the Bhagavatam regularly, like many of the devotees here, you're doing, and by associating with the person Bhagavatam, the person who is living the Bhagavatam, basically, like the devotees who are able to do this to different capacities. It's the Nityam Bhagavata Sevayavars. So what we see is, so from the topic of faith, like I'm switching to Hare Krishna, Arjun Prabhu. In this verse, we see that the demigods are chanting the Purusha Shukta prayers with great attention and reverence. Just briefly, like this prayer, from what I could find, was like, it is basically sung during the worship of the deity of Vishnu or Narayan in the temple, during installation and fire ceremonies, and for some other purposes. This this prayer is mentioned in the Rig Veda, and it looks like there are many rules and regulations which are attached, like how it is pronounced, the correct meter by which it is sung. So these are like prayers which usually the Brahmanas, they sing for Vedic sacrifices. And of course, there could be devotees also who know this well, who could be praying this on their own. But luckily for us in this Kali Yuga, like Lord Chaitanya, he gave the instruction that all we have to do is just chant the names of Radha and Krishna, which is so simple that even a small child can do that. In the Madhya Leela, in chapter 6, it is said, like, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy names. There is no other way, no other way, no other way. It's like Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam khalam nasti, eva nasti, eva nasti, eva gatiranyata. So coming to this verse, like we see Mother Earth, she's taking the form of a cow, which is a very gentle and helpless creature. And she's crying out to the Lord. She's crying out. She's crying to Lord Brahma, and then they all go to the Lord. So what this tells us is that when we come in front of the Lord, like we should also chant sincerely, like Prabhupada says, like like a child who's crying for his mother, who's helplessly crying for his mother. And coming back to the verse, like basically Mother Earth is she approached Lord Brahma, and they are, along with the demigods, they all go to the shore of the ocean of milk. So this this shows like they are all willing to surrender. Like they're not trying to solve the problem by themselves. They are all surrendering to the higher power, like Vishnu or Krishna in this case. And so basically what we see from this scene is that the demigods are all coming together. They're not going individually, and they're all crying or praying to the Lord in the mood of helplessness. So a couple of things that we can all learn is the Lord appreciates when we like come together congregationally, we come together and sing, do Hari Kirtan, and individually we should also imbibe the mood of being helpless when we are sitting in a Kirtan. So it's basically Krishna is pleased by a group petition in a Kirtan, like when everyone is coming together and petitioning the Lord for his mercy, for his blessings. And by this process, we are able to please the Lord a lot more than by what we can with our own individual efforts. And besides, it is also described that congregational chanting is the Yuga Dharma for this age of Kali. There are also other instances in the scriptures where we see the devotees coming together and approaching the Lord in a helpless mood. I'll just like briefly quote some of these pastimes. Basically, when like Ravana conquered the heaven and the earth, the demigods and the devotees cried out to Krishna, and then Lord Ram, he came. He came and he destroyed Ravana and his empire. Then we see Bali Maharaj, like when he was able to capture Indra's abode, he was able to conquer the earth and the whole universe. And at that time, the devotees, they all prayed to Vishnu to help them. And Vamandev appeared. And he was able to, basically at the end of the pastime, Vamandev is stepping over Bali Maharaj's head. He realizes that he is subordinate to the Lord. We also see Hiranyakashipu. In this case, like his armies had conquered all directions. Basically, the Brahmanas couldn't perform their Vedic sacrifices. And even Narada Muni had become a humble servant of Hiranyakashipu. At that time, all the devotees and Prahlad Maharaj, they were calling out to the Lord, and the Lord appeared in the form of Nrsimhadev. Again, as Hiranyakashipu's brother, like Hiranyaksha, he conquered the world and the universe, and even Varuna had to give up his abode. And with his mace, Hiranyaksha was threatening everyone and everything. But when the devotees, they prayed to Lord Brahma, and from Brahma's nose, like a small boar appears, and the boar, he rises up to the sky, and we have like Lord Baladev, and who ultimately protected his devotees. In another pastime, like when the Mandara mountain is being churned by the demons and the demigods, like the mountain is ultimately, it is sinking and it is crushing everyone. So at that time again, the Lord was approached, and he appeared in the form of a tortoise as Kurmadev. And on his back, basically the mountain was kept held as a pivot. The tortoise's back was used as a pivot. And coming to more recent times, we see how Advaita Acharya, he calls out to Mahaprabhu. At that time, like around 500 years ago, the process of bhakti had been reduced to rituals. It was mostly like jnana. That's what the Brahmanas were interested in, and they were performing rituals, and there was not devotional service which was taking place. So on Advaita Acharya's prayers, like Mahaprabhu appeared in this world. And even more recently, we see like how Srila Prabhupada, like when he came to the US, when he came to Boston, on the ship, he writes his Jaladuta prayers. And in those prayers, he expresses his helplessness, basically, that how am I going to preach to this Western audience who are so deeply conditioned? And Prabhupada, he made himself as a puppet in the hands of the Lord. And he says, like, you can make me dance. You can make me dance. You can make me dance the way you choose. Oh, Lord. And Prabhupada's disciple, like Gaur Govind Maharaj, he says, quote, like, I have opened a crying school here in Bhubaneswar. Unless we cry for Krishna, we cannot get his mercy, end quote. So in all these instances, what we see is basically the devotees are calling out to the Lord in a mood of helplessness. And so what this means for us is, like, when we sit down to chant or sit down in the kirtan, when we are able to call the Lord with sincerity, then we can experience both the sweetness of the holy name and the mercy of the Lord. This chapter of the Bhagavatam is called Advent of Lord Krishna. And in this verse, we specifically see how that can take place even in our own lives. So, like, the point which we can take personally, I could take personally also, is that if we want the Lord to appear in our lives, to advent in our lives, then we have to set aside our own, like, likes and dislikes, the fault-finding mentality amongst the devotees, and just come together and chant in a helpless mood of service, basically. So as much shelter as we are able to take of this process, that much we are freed of our own contaminated desires. So it's in the Shikshastakam, it is said, like, we are, by chanting with this mood of sincere service, we are purifying our own hearts, and the dust in our hearts are, like, coming off, dust which has accumulated over lifetimes and lifetimes. It's coming off. It is not typically obvious, like we feel like, oh no, I'm still the same person who I was when I chanted, like I still see so many anarthas in my heart. But what I've been told by the devotees is, like, when we just look back at the arc of our own life, we can see, like, yeah, there has been some level of detachment from the world. Like someone like me, for example, like I would like really read the newspapers for hours and hours at end. But these days I just find it like it's the same thing every day. It's like different characters, different personalities, but it's the same problems that is engulfing the world. So by the grace of Prabhupada, Krishna, his holy name, there is some amount of purification. So we can all individually just like look at our own hearts and see like what has changed. The question that will come is that once we have this initial faith, then how do we progress further? How can we actually become more focused on Krishna? Like what is like practically a next step that we can take? And this is something which I came across. It is said like we have to take go close to those people who are close to Krishna themselves, because by doing that, some of their personality will rub off on our own hearts. This one method that is recommended is by reading or singing the bhajans that is sung by the previous acharyas, even the current acharyas. But so Krishna is pleased when we become a devotee of the devotee. So he becomes even more favorable towards us. So one song is by that I wanted to share in this context is like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The song is called Bhajan Lalasa. It's the song number 1. Means like the eagerness to glorify the Lord. So I'll just quickly read. It's only 4 stanzas. It's a short bhajan. But as we read it, like we can see like how the feeling of like sincerity and devotion comes about even in our own hearts, to whatever small extent it may be, but we see something. So I'll read the Translation of the bhajan. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, O Lord, having fallen into this material world and becoming wicked, I see no other means of deliverance. Shelter of your feet is the only help for the helpless. And thus I accepted you as my be-all and end-all. You must know I perform no pious actions. I have no knowledge. I do not really engage in any devotional practices. And I do not perform any devotional service. Yet you are merciful, and I am most fallen. I pray for your unconditional mercy. The powerful urges of speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals have banded together to cast me adrift on the sea of this material world, thus causing me great anxiety and trouble. I have given up hope in subduing these urges by my own persistent endeavors. O Lord of the helpless, I call your name, for you are now my only hope. So, when we sing such prayers, when we read them or contemplate on what is being said, this eagerness which is there in the hearts of these great acharyas, some of it rubs off even in our own hearts. And this basically like fills our heart with eagerness for devotional life. And basically it is a gift that is being passed down by them, by these great saints to us. Mm-hmm. So in conclusion, like I'll summarize, so what we basically saw today was like how this material world is a place of suffering, including for the demigods also. And we saw like how the demigods, they all came together and they worship Lord Krishna congregationally, chanting and worshipping him, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained to us. And by following this simple process, even we can ask Lord Krishna to advent in our own hearts. Yeah, that is what I had to say for now. So thank you for tolerating me. If there are any comments, reflections, clarifications, please do share. Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Well, this is Adi. Hare Krishna. Wonderful class. Perfect. Amazing. And the question, the suffering, and then you take shelter of, advanced devotees. And that ashram, we were listening last night to a podcast talking about the concept of ashram, and whether or not it's a good idea to go into an ashram. And there was some talk. I mean, the person speaking was very sincere and articulate and enthusiastic and charismatic and, very, very nice devotee giving class. But he was saying, well, in this day and age, not everyone will go into the ashram. So they were recommending, you go to these retreats for a month. You go learn how to play the mridanga. You go to learn how to cook. You learn how to study scripture. You get a time of immersion in a month-long of sadhana. And one of the things they didn't quite get to, I didn't get the whole class last night, but I was remembering that Srila Prabhupada was explaining that there's ashram. There's like a temple or a building or a place where you take shelter. But the most important ingredient is ashram.
Most important ingredient is
ashire. In other words, the person that you take shelter of. So you may have an experience where you learn some information and where you learn some skill. But the one thing that we really learn in the brahmachari stage in the student life is we open up and solidify the connection with the ashara, the person giving shelter, the relationship with the spiritual master, where we develop trust in the spiritual master and we practice obedience to the spiritual master and we allow the spiritual master to speak in our life. And it says the brahmachari, the student, lives in the house of the spiritual master only for the sake of the spiritual master's mission. That we actually get that understanding that this person is my focus. This is the one I'm inquiring from. This is the one I'm obeying. This is the one I'm being guided by. And I have it says one who has full faith in Guru and Krishna and is engaged in their service, all the imports of the Vedas will be revealed to them, and all the good qualities of the demigods will be revealed. We may speak about leadership being encouraging or inclusive or compassionate, but these are not things that although we strive for them and we understand the value of them, these things are byproducts. When we surrender to Guru, Krishna works through the spiritual master to empower us to have the good qualities. So that relationship with the Guru, maybe you can get some skills during a month of sadhana or learning how to cook or learning how to play the harmonium. But the main idea of taking shelter, like we were talking about today, is to take shelter of a person. We're not surrendering to a list of rules. We're not surrendering to a building. We're not surrendering to an institution. We're surrendering to a person. We develop love and trust for a person. And so otherwise it's less than personal. And we keep the Guru at a distance rather than give him our whole heart. Anyway, there's the love bond that we really look for. And that brings, the Guru brings us to Krishna. Maybe I'm speaking too much. Other people I'm sure have something wonderful to say. I'll go to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Adipurush Prabhu. Yeah, it is said like Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. So by the mercy of Guru, we get the creeper of devotion in our own hearts. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Like it is, our ashram people can have different understandings. So ultimately, it is a place where we can find shelter, like you said. It could be the Grahastha ashram, the Brahmacharya ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, Sannyasa ashram, depending on the stage that we are at. Ultimately, we want the association of the devotees, the senior devotees who can basically live the scriptures for us and tell us like how does this apply in this time and place, and depending on my own psychophysical nature, how do I apply this? Thank you for sharing that.
We have to go anyway to 5 up.
Okay. Any other reflections, questions, devotees, online or live? Do we have Balakrishna Prabhu? Do we have any ashram devotees in class live at the temple room?
Yes, we have.
Maybe they wanted to share their experience of surrendering, how that plays out for them. Maybe Arjuna Prabhu would like to share something. He's our senior ashramite. Arjuna Prabhu, are you there?
You can repeat what I'm saying.
Okay, he wants me to repeat what he's saying. So hold on.
Personal association.
Ashram life is personal association.
Morning till evening. We're associated with Sangha. Morning program is so powerful. Different programs that we're having. It's not kirtan. Very, very vital to spiritual nourishment, and therefore ashram.
So I'll try to repeat what the things that Arjun Prabhu said. He said like ashram life is association from morning till evening. We have the morning program, we have kirtan, and we have to get taking prasadam together is also association. Yes, that is important. Except for
COVID period.
Except for COVID period. Yes. So
Yeah, they're taking prasadam from morning to evening in the association of the devotees.
That's the program.
Yeah.
that's the program, Arjun Prabhu says.
Yeah.
Yes.
That will bring COVID to the end, I think.
Thank you, Arjun Prabhu. Yeah, any other reflections or questions or any comments?
Yeah, that's a really good point about going on from morning to evening. And the quantity and the quality are both important. And the idea is that it's not based on geographical proximity. Prabhupada said, I'm always with my spiritual master. And he always say, we say this, we say that. He's always with the spiritual master. Nothing can separate us from the instruction of the spiritual master. Not oceans, not mountains, not time. It's a relationship that's outside of time and space. So we may think if I'm in the building, then I'm close to my guru. But Prabhupada said, this fly on my head is not associating with me. But my disciple on the other side of the world, if he's doing what I'm asking, then he's right, very close to me. So there's no block, there's no bar. Anyone, anywhere, anytime can be with Guru and have that relationship of obedience and trying to please the spiritual master. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Adipurush Prabhu. Yeah, Prabhupada, just to add on top of what he said, Prabhupada said, like, I'm chanting there, you are chanting here, but we're all like packed up together. So he knew that we are all not separated from each other.
We're looking forward to hearing your class more often. Wonderful, wonderful, because you're such a good devotee. It's like your spiritual master is empowering you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Bhima Prabhu, I see you have your hand raised.
I think it's time. I guess.
Haribol Prabhu, wonderful, sweet class. I just wanted to very briefly just say that for those who are, not having the great fortune of being in an ashram environment or even close to a group of devotees, far enough away from the nearest temple that it would be a half day's or actually a full day's hike, that we would pay anything. We would anything.
Breaking down.
Bhima Prabhu, your signal's a bit weak. Things.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. We would all pay and give anything to have association privately with Prabhupada for an hour or two. And that would be like the greatest association ever, where he could give us instructions, exactly what we need to hear, etc. And we actually all have that chance if we were to get up early in the morning before our children arise, before the sun rises, and read his books and read them slowly and associate with Prabhupada, imagine, we don't use that word much, but it works. Imagine yourself there with Prabhupada, and during the purport, he's speaking to you. And if you can just do that, then you are associating with Prabhupada on a level. If you're 100% there, you are associating with Prabhupada on a level that is actually higher and more intimate than actually being in the same room with him when he was here. Because a lot of the times Prabhupada did not speak to people individually, but he can through you reading sincerely, asking and seeking. Krishna will arrange that Prabhupada speaks to you. So you are never at a loss for devotee association and the highest and the greatest and the most blessed association of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to the Shri.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Yeah, like Prabhupada said, like I will never die. Like I will live through my books and my instructions. So thank you for bringing that point out. It's 8 o'clock, dear devotees. Thank you, Emily, Karthik, and Himangi. We will take your leave. The curtains are about to open.
Thank you, Balakrishna Prabhu. Wonderful class. It was very therapeutical. I felt like I was you for this 45 minutes. It was very great. I felt purified. Thank you very much for speaking.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, dear devotees, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a blessed day. We're never at a loss if we associate with Prabhupada through his books and take shelter of the Guru and the devotees around us. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada.